Hello, hello. Welcome everyone to the EspoVisuals Podcast. Today we've got Jessica in the house. Jessica is an incredible painter who shares her journey on social media and makes videos around creative empowerment. I love your content. I found you on TikTok. I am so excited to meet you and get into your story today.
Thank you, guys. I'm so happy to be here. It's my first time ever being interviewed on a podcast. So,
Oh my gosh.
that's cool. And it's actually funny because people have been telling me for all of my adult life that my voice would be great on podcasts. So
I was telling Matt before this, I said, I'm so excited because you have such a beautiful voice. And your videos, it's for the type of content you make, your voice is perfect. It's so like soothing and comforting, the exact voice you'd want to tell you supporting things. So
absolutely,
you have an amazing voice.
That's so interesting because that's just who I am. You know, that's just like, that's how I talk to myself every day in my studio. And I think the reason why those videos and that content is working is because it's real. Because if I try to do something and put it on the internet, that's me talking in a way that I wouldn't really talk to myself, or, you know, exaggerating my personality, people don't buy it. So it doesn't really work.
You can feel that from your videos. You get that vibe of this is what you would tell yourself. These are the encouraging words that you would tell yourself, and you feel that. So yeah, I would love.
Yeah, and I get my voice from my mom. She has the same voice as me. So
oh my gosh.
I was always saying,
Thank
Mom,
you,
we
Mom.
should start a podcast.
Oh my gosh, you should.
There you go.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so before we get into today's podcast, I want to thank our sponsor, Solana. Solana is an NFT marketplace on the Solana blockchain. If you're interested in learning about NFTs and how to sell your art, I have an entire playlist where I take you through the whole process that I will link down below in the description. Let's get into today's episode. But first, I would really appreciate it if you like this video and leave a comment. It helps so much, and it's honestly the best way that you can support this podcast right now. So thank you for doing that, and let's get into this episode with Jessica. So lots to get into. I'm excited to talk about your content. But first, I would love it if you just kind of give a little background of who you are, where you're from, how you got into art.
Sure. So it's always hard for me to put in a nutshell where I'm from because I was born in the San Francisco Bay Area, but that was only because my parents were living there temporarily. So I was born there. I lived there till I was 3 years old, and then we moved back to New Jersey where they were from. And I grew up there, spent 25 years of my life there. Kind of in this area. People think New Jersey is all just like right outside of New York and gritty and scary and ugly, but I grew up in an area in New Jersey that's actually really full of tall trees and beautiful. So, but it was also really influenced by, we're smack in the middle of New York City and Philadelphia. So it was really influenced by these big cities. I went to a performing arts school in high school because I was just kind of one of those kids that couldn't, I guess you could say it was ADD. I could focus, but I was just really, really interested in doing creative things. So I was always told that I was really smart, but I wouldn't do my work. So I would only start to do my work and get good grades if I was in something creative. So luckily, my dad found this performing arts school. I was in dance, in the school more than regular kids were in high school, and I just loved it. And then I went to a college in my state in New Jersey, was kind of like undeclared. That was a weird, messy time of my life where, I had some personal things going on and family and had no idea who I wanted to be. So I kind of just like did whatever and was very social in those first couple of years of college. I dropped out of my college, had a really not good experience interning in New York City when I was in this like very fragile early 20s place, and I had a terrible boss tell me that I would never do anything better than this job. And it was just so scarring, and I don't think I realized at that time that it's actually, unfortunately, a really universal thing for creative people to go through, is this kind of like, waiting for validation outside of you. And then once you get one kind of piece of feedback, you think it's what everyone thinks of you. it's just such a really vulnerable thing to put your creative work in the world. But so then I dropped out, and then I did nothing weird things for for like 5 years. I bartended. I worked in other, restaurants and nightlife. I bounced around cities. Finally, I moved to San Francisco in 2012 and went back to college. And it was like the scariest thing for me because at that point I was 26. And looking back, it was like everybody was telling me, you're not that much older than college age. It's fine. And I knew that, but there was something so weird about being that little bit older, like being a little bit older than I should be in my undergraduate classes. But I knew what I wanted to get out of it. And I went to a really, really great art school. I went to California College of the Arts for illustration. And I just like fully dove into everything. And I almost kind of even zoned out all of the social stuff around me. I hope I didn't alienate anybody, but I was just so fixated on, at this point, like loving being in school and just knowing why I was there and knowing that I needed to get everything out of it. And my main goal was to come out of that program knowing how to sustain a creative practice. That was the only thing that I wanted because I had experienced just the kind of the pain of not knowing how to do that and it feeling so lonely. And that's all I wanted in my life was just to figure out how to, work a studio on my own with nobody else telling me what to do. So I did. I graduated with distinction, which is like their term for honors, which is the best I've ever done in school by far. And then I jumped right into, it was such a gift. I got a almost full-time position as an in-house textile designer for Pottery Barn, which was right in the same city in San Francisco. I worked there, met some incredible people. My art director was incredible. I'm still really close friends with a lot of those people that I met there. Just learned how to make art commercially. And I really was actually just getting paid to paint every day. And then my work was being produced. And yeah, it was a really big, a great feeling of momentum coming right out of school and getting that. And I just kind of felt like, okay, I did it. I made it into this place that I just like, there was a point 10 years ago, I thought, no way in the world I will ever be in this position. And so I think that all of that is really why I have the outlook that I do and why I feel really, really passionate and strongly about helping other people understand that you can totally turn this around. And if you want to do something creative in your life, you have to be patient and you have to be really diligent, but you can be. And the reason that you're not already is not because you're not good enough. So that is where I'm at now. And, through the pandemic, I had actually just been transitioning into being a contractor for Pottery Barn instead of full-time right before the pandemic. So then when the pandemic hit, I just went freelance. I still work for them freelance. I do freelance for other clients, but I'm just fully independent and I'm selling my paintings and loving my studio life.
That is so inspiring. That's awesome.
Okay, I have lots of questions. Art school. I have heard just from other podcasts I listen to how art schools can really differ in terms of some are very theory-based, and not as much practical how to be an actual working artist. When you were in art school, were you learning a lot of techniques for actual art? Were you learning a lot of how to actually be a working artist and different industries to go in? What was that like?
That's a good question, because I think that you're right, that there's definitely way more focus in art school on the technical skills. Personally, I think that is incredibly important, especially because of, like I said, what I was looking to get out of art school. I wanted more than anything to just know how to sustain a creative practice. And part of why I kept hitting walls before I went back to art school is because I didn't have these skills. So I really don't want to undervalue, how important those things are that they talk about. I also think that art schools are aware of the need for there to be more practical classes being offered and more information about, what you call professional practice classes. The interesting thing, though, is that the students don't want it. So I think that's part of the uphill battle. In my experience being in school, part of why I really feel like, I had enough of that knowledge getting out of school. One is that I already had a little bit of real world experience before I went in. And two, because I actually took every professional practice class that was offered in the whole school. So I took the professional practice class for fine artists. I took the professional practice class for illustrators. I'm exaggerating to say the whole school, but I took all of the ones that I could. So there are a lot of them being offered, at least at the school that I went to. It's just a matter of, the school can only do so much to let the students know that this is important. And if I can share with other students, it is really important. You should take those classes. So I don't think it's, a discredit to the schools that it's not being offered. I also think that they are really trying to work on always getting professors in the school that are going to do a good job at helping students set examples for ways that they can make a living when they get out of school. The hardest thing I feel like is for being a young 20-something in art school is, and I was in the same boat, you really have so little of a grasp on, one, what the economic realities are going to be when you're outside of school in any career, and two, the discrepancy between that and what you really need to do to make that kind of money in an art career. So I got a little bit of pushback when I was in school. Right before I went back, I didn't mention that I actually worked doing sales and marketing for other creative businesses. So I was already really, really into understanding the need for sales. And so when I jumped into school, people kind of almost were a little bit turned off by how salesy I was. And then, I think that that's interesting that now I'm doing okay. And I'm financially fine running an art business. So, I just think it's something that the students need to know is more important.
I completely agree. That's something me and Sydney talk about a lot to everyone we talk to that's creatives. It's the importance of selling. My dad's a sales guy, so we've had this just hammered into our heads our whole lives. But it's like, I don't really care how great your art is. If you can't even get it out there and talk to people and get all the stuff going, it's like, it's just going to sit there. And you're like you said, you're never going to be able to do it for a living and to really make real money where you can feel comfortable. Like, you're still maybe going to put it out, but there's a big difference.
And I would think a lot of sales doesn't come easy, I would say, to most creatives.
To most artists, yeah.
It's not surprising to me that students, young 20-somethings in art school, aren't thrilled to take sales classes because they're like, I'm here to paint and learn art and learn theory. So that does make sense. And I can see that being something that a couple years after school, they're like, dang, I wish I would have taken those classes because that's really the information I need right now. I have all these beautiful skills, but no one's seeing my work. How do I get it out there?
Yeah, and I'll never forget, I had this one teacher do an exercise in one of our professional practice classes that the other students were just so begrudgingly taking, where he had us go home and email him a number that he thinks we need to make every year to live as an artist, because he didn't want people to raise their hands. He wanted to see what every person thought. And when I got to class the next day, he pulled me aside and he said, you are the only person who came remotely close to what you should need to make to live.
Wow.
And I said, well, because I'm already in my late 20s and I already do have to make money to live. But I wish that then there was a little bit, I wish that then that was, it's unfortunate that the students are just so, especially because those classes are being offered at a time where they're hyper-focusing on their thesis and this place that they're at with their creativity. And the last thing they want to be bothered with is thinking about numbers. I hate numbers too, but I need them to live.
Exactly.
So, it's too bad that there's not a way to kind of just pull them inside and say, hold on, this is not an option. You have to think about this.
I totally agree. I'm so happy you're saying that. You're one of the first creatives we've talked to that really has that mindset. I love it because that's me in a nutshell. this is my big focus with
Yeah.
our team. Sid's a little bit more on the creative
And to be
side, and this is me.
clear, I really don't think that it means that you have to sacrifice making good, meaningful work.
Absolutely
I just
not.
think that it's a mindset and it's a confidence thing, and people think that they have to wait until they get to a certain confidence level with their self and their work to deserve to be promoting it. But if you look at it more of, hey, this is a business and I have to make money, then that kind of just goes out the door.
Yeah.
I love that.
And I think too, you've touched on this in some of your videos. I think it would be important, and I'd love for you to touch on this too, to have that mindset when you're actually creating your body of work. One of my favorite videos that you made, which Matt and I, we took some classes, and this was drilled into our heads of, you want to create a body of work and a portfolio that's the work you want to be hired for. A class we took, a filmmaker was going through people's portfolios and, seeing like what could be improved. And if you have a bunch of random videos from like real estate and all this other stuff, but you want to be a wedding photographer, like you need a body of work that's for that stuff that you want to be hired for. And if people aren't really thinking about that, they're not thinking of sales, they're just thinking of, I want to get better and make art, maybe they would produce kind of an inconsistent body of work, which would then make it harder to actually make sales and get work. I'd love, you want to talk about that a little?
And, it's so interesting because I feel like I have a network of friends and colleagues and people I've worked with, in the industry, in through Pottery Barn and through other kind of surface design professional overlaps. And they all are, financially thriving artists and designers because they are constantly taking the time to make work for their portfolio that they want to get hired for. And a lot of these people don't have many followers on social media because that's not their priority. Their priority is to make a living with their work. And again, I'm kind of experimenting these days with the fact that there can be an overlap between having a following on social media and making money and doing that kind of work. But I think, I've actually mentored a couple of college kids since I've graduated. And it's just so fascinating to me how younger artists are focusing so much on these vanity numbers of how many followers somebody has on social media and focusing less on pleasing clients. And you're not going to get any work if you're not pleasing clients. I do understand that you could go the route of just getting a following on social media and starting that way with getting clients, but you have to know how to please your clients if you're going to keep them and get referrals for more. Mm-hmm. And I think that point that I made about making work that you want to get hired for, just like what you were saying, you might be, so I went through this couple years phase in San Francisco, where I was just transitioning out of being full-time as an in-house designer and trying to go freelance. And I was doing a lot of murals for commercial clients. So I did one mural for a friend of mine whose husband just started a startup company, and they needed a mural inside of their office, which was awesome because it was downtown San Francisco in a historic building. I got paid full price. They didn't skimp on anything. But I did a very geometric mural because it was for a friend and that's what she wanted. So I made the mistake of putting that on social media and starting to get a flood of other art consultants that wanted to hire me for commercial murals doing geometric murals. And that is the farthest thing from the kind of work that I like to do and that I want to do more of in my career. And it was really a tough spot because I wanted to take the money. It was great pay. I wanted to take these jobs and take these clients. But I was having this really hard time explaining to them, I don't want to do that. I'll do that job for you, but I want to do these flowers and people. And they were like, well, that's not what we want. We'll hire someone else. So I luckily overlapped with working a collaborative mural with another artist who was further along in her career. And she said to me, none of your non-artist friends or family are going to understand this, but you have to actually turn down those jobs. Mm-hmm. She said, you have to turn down those jobs and then take a beat and go do some portfolio examples of the jobs that you want to get and put those on the internet. And I was like, that's, like you said, growing up having this, I also have a dad that was in sales, and having this middle class sort of mentality of I have to make money, I can't say no to work. It was so tough. There was so much guilt in me doing that. But so far it's working. And so far that is one of the best pieces of advice that I got, because now I am getting, I'm in discussion about doing a mural for the kind of art that I want to make. So you have to do that. Otherwise, if you care more about the money, then fine, take the work. But if you really want to love what you do and get paid to do it, you have to take the time to make the work for your portfolio that you want to get hired to do, and you can look at it like an investment.
Absolutely. We've done that. We used the for us when we were getting started, because you need to practice, we need to build the portfolio, we want to do it. We used free to fee is what we've kind of heard it called. So we would just contact these companies and we would do it for free because it's a project we want to do. It's already something we want to practice. And we're like, hey, well, let's do it for a company that would actually value. Everything works out. And then we were actually able to generate clients by building our portfolio. So we found companies that just worked with us, hit them up for free, did the video, they liked it. Then they even hired us afterwards. So that's something super powerful too that people I don't really think about. You can kind of do both.
Yeah.
I think it's a good approach. And I did have, we didn't end up going through with the project because I actually was getting other paid projects, but I was going to do these surface design, labels for a little startup apothecary company. And that was the same thing. I reached out, it was the beginning of the pandemic. I had some extra time. And I said, this is the kind of project that I really need in my portfolio because I know that I can do it. But the thing is that people won't believe that you can do something until they see it. Yeah. So I was just going to do it. Like you just said, I was going to do it pro bono, kind of like a trade. And don't do too many of those because you deserve to get paid, especially if you're providing good quality. But one or two to start, and then you're on your way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think would you say for artists starting out, let's say maybe they're getting offers for jobs that aren't their ideal work, would the move maybe to be, let's say they wanted that money to maybe take that job, but not actually put it in their portfolio. And while they're doing that work, kind of on the side, do portfolio work just for themselves and kind of keep that as just like a moneymaker, but not highlight that in their portfolio because they don't want to continue to get work like that.
Yeah, I think that's another really good option. There's work that I still do to this day that I just don't put in my portfolio because it's great. Some of the freelance clients that are steady that I have, it's actually work that, so it's kind of nice for me at this point because I'm my own boss every day, 24/7. So sometimes when I have client work that I know I don't have to put in my portfolio, of course I'm going to do a good job for them, but it's almost kind of this meditative sort of easier work for me. It's a nice little break for me to do something like that. So I just don't have to be a boss for a minute. I can just do this work that I know I'm going to get a check for. I know I'm going to keep this client relationship going. And the only reason why I take work like that is if it's not something that's going to go into the public realm, especially if it will have my name attached to it. So murals were a bad option of that, what you're talking about. I had to say no to those clients, and I couldn't do these mural jobs just for the money because they were going to be seen by people. But if I'm going to be doing, I actually do a lot of kind of like digital, just kind of like the grunt work. I'll do like these digital like color corrections and cleanups, and I get paid hourly for those. And they're not something that could even be outlined as a project. It's not something that's going to be a portfolio piece. And I'm grateful for that kind of work. I think that's the thing that a lot of people, when I talk about getting freelance work and I talk about, how to be an art freelancer, I think people don't realize that you almost have to have work like that on the side. It's still art, that's still design, it's still similar to what you're doing otherwise. Because then when a big job comes along that you're going to want to put in your portfolio, you don't want to have to lowball or be tempted to lowball or be tempted to cut corners on that job because you need to make the money. You want to be able to have something on the side that you know you're going to make your money doing, that you can get paid an hourly rate that's, going to cover your bills. And that could be anything. That doesn't even have to be a creative job. That could just be, I just think for artists, we don't want to ever be in a position where we have to take a job for the money and then cut corners to do it for ourselves and for the clients.
That's great advice. That's really helpful to hear. And a quick question, because you've mentioned it a couple times and I just don't know what that means. Textile design, are you painting things and then it'll be on a pillow or on something like that, or a curtain? Is that what you mean by that?
Yeah. So there's a couple approaches to making textile designs. One of them is to paint something by hand, which was often what I was asked to do because I did have the hand painting skills. There are also, sometimes we would buy a piece of artwork from another artist, and then we would because we had the licensing for it, we could just do all of these things digitally to turn it into something new, color correct it. Sometimes there's what's called CAD, computer aided design. So I have some former colleagues who would basically just start a design from scratch on the computer. So there's all different ways to do it, but I think I'm going to work on making some more social media videos for this, because I think a lot of people don't realize how much digitally goes into doing textile design. You could do, I'm trying to think if I have anything around me. I do. Can I get something and show you guys?
Yeah.
Please.
Okay, hold on. This is a drawing that doesn't really look like it's on, like it wouldn't be a piece of art by itself. It's a snake with some ivy leaves, but what it's going to be, I already have it. Before and after painting that, I design the layout of what I want it to look like in a repeating pattern. And you have to know a lot. There's a lot of technical skill that goes behind understanding how repeat patterns work. But once you have the layout designed, then you make the artwork, and then you scan the artwork back in, and then you do all of this. I would say sometimes it could be like weeks to a month of work to get that artwork into a repeating pattern that looks like something you could put on bedding or a pillow or wallpaper. And it's such an impressive skill. All of the people that I've worked with who do it are amazing. But it's really fun. It's you're just taking your artwork and you're making it into something people can put in their house. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you're basically painting one of the little scenes, one of the snakes with the ivy, and then digitally it'll put it perfectly together to have a bunch, and it'll be all one cohesive thing.
And it's not magic. You have to spend time doing it, but yeah, it's really satisfying to see it come together.
That sounds so satisfying. Yeah, finally when you're done, you can just stretch it and you just see it go forever. It's that's cool.
Right.
Do you have bedding or anything like that in your house? Like, is your whole house done by you? Is it all your work?
Well, we just bought this house less than a year ago, and we used to live in a 1-bedroom apartment, and now we have a house, and we're like, I feel like this is like, we're getting lost in it. So there's so much still that we're doing in it. I actually, I am more like, I like to say I'm like Georgia O'Keeffe, because she used to live in her spaces were all like stark white and minimal, so that she could think about her painting. And that's kind of the way that I am. I'm so glad that minimal is back in style, because that's like better for my brain. But the reason I like that too is because I like to have areas of like collected or interest. So what I am doing, that snake and ivy pattern is going to be a wallpaper in our bathroom. So we'll have little areas where my artwork will be, and otherwise I'm like super, super picky about anything that goes on the wall in my house.
Gotcha.
So I would love to start talking about content. So you said before, you touched on a lot of artists now, especially younger artists, focusing on followers and social media. So that kind of made me think, and what you've have said now that you don't get a lot of your clients from your social media content. Is that true?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I feel like the pandemic expanded something that was it propelled something that was kind of already transitioning with the way that social media influences your art career. There's so much, and I know a lot of other gallerists and artists and designers agree with me that there is so much that's amazing about social media that artists could never have before that we do now. You know, even just growing up and a lot of my, you know, my younger life, not being able to see anyone like me anywhere because I was, you know, and I was living in a pretty, you know, a bigger area, but I mean, I still didn't know any artists. I didn't know, you know, any artists who were thriving in a career. I didn't know about galleries. And now, you know, you could be growing up or emerging as an artist and you can go on the internet and find millions of other people that can be inspiration for you. Not to mention that you can do the same thing with your own art. You can self-promote. That's a huge thing that's shifted because you used to have to go through a gallery or you had to get hired, you know, to be an illustrator, and otherwise, like, you just couldn't. There was no way that you could get anyone else to see your art. So I think that's really great. I think that there still was kind of maybe like 10 years ago or so, there was, and maybe a little shorter than that, there was still this, like I said, this discrepancy between vanity numbers of people who had a lot of followers and people who were actually like the, you know, the big players, at least in the illustration industry. I knew names of these big illustrators that were getting all of the jobs in the industry that, you know, you would go on their Instagram profile and they had like 200 followers, if even, but they were getting hired by all the clients. So then there just started to be this shift that was happening, like, I think right before the pandemic, and then the pandemic hit. And I know that I started to feel like, oh my God, you know, I'm just at home all the time. I have no more community around me in person. I have no more ability to go out to the gallery. Like, I felt so desperate to connect with people. So I started to really focus more on putting things online. And I think that kind of mirrors maybe what a lot of other artists were already feeling, who weren't working in-house designing, who weren't, you know, living in a big city. They were using social media to get that connection. And it's really helpful to have that feeling of community. I still do think that you have to set your own goals for who you want to work with. I think that there's a good chance that you're going to get random people that come to you from finding you online. But if you know, you have to identify, you know, what kind of jobs do you want to get? What kind of galleries do you want to be in? And you could get, you know, millions of followers on Instagram and never be accepted into a gallery because that gallery doesn't probably care so much about that. They want good work and they want to continue to perpetuate art standards in the industry because no artists really want that to fall apart, you know. At the same time, I do think that it's really great and exciting to get to see people, you know, having these kind of alternative ways of making a living with their art. So I sell so much of my art directly to clients instead of through a gallery, and that's because of Instagram. If I didn't start doing that on Instagram, I'd probably still be waiting to get into some of these gallery shows. And that, you know, that's a really interesting thing because I can continue to get more followers and get more buyers of my work, but I still want to be accepted by the art industry. I still really want my work to be seen as a level that people who are already players in the industry respect. So I don't ever want to let that go. You know, I think that it's really exciting to start to see so much movement happening because I can find like-minded people on the internet. But I don't want to let go of my own goals and my own standards just because that's happening. Does that make sense?
That definitely makes sense. You were on it. I just want to say all of your points are truly, like, they're just so valuable for people who are just getting started and don't know these things. And so that's interesting that you say I was going to ask, what made you want to start content or start making videos? So that was perfect, because I noticed the content you make on Instagram, on TikTok, it's geared towards artists. So I was wondering if my kind of idea or thought would be that you have a lot of artists on your social media, but not as many like buyers. Like it seems more so like you're focused on helping artists with your social media content rather than actually selling your work, but it sounds like that happens as well. So do you use Instagram to connect with community, connect with artists, and for your original works, that's kind of how they're mostly sold, but then all of your client work and stuff like that, you get those clients off social media?
Well, it depends. I mean, so I get, I get people that reach out to me to do licensing for surface design or something like that. And they might find me through like a different online portfolio platform where they're specifically trying to look through portfolios and not just, who has more followers and who, they're just trying to look at the artwork. And so I'm really, I feel respected when that happens, because I feel like there's an even playing field. They're just looking at my work. They're hiring for me for that. That's great. It's interesting that you bring that up about a lot of my social media being geared toward artists, because it wasn't that way for a while on Instagram before I started a TikTok. And I was starting to get these organic clients through Instagram who maybe are like a friend of a friend. They're usually like not super removed. They're usually people who like may have met me in real life or know me through someone else or knew me through a gallery. And the interesting thing is that these people continue to buy from me. So I have a lot of repeat collectors who just want to keep buying whatever I'm making. And that's a really interesting thing that I wouldn't have known happens when I was younger, because I'm not really an art collector yet in my life. The one thing I can relate it to is my tattoos. And my friend mentioned to me the other day, he said, well, you can look at it kind of like you in the way you go to tattoo artists and you keep getting more work from that same person. Mm-hmm. And I said, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And now I can understand that. So when I started to make TikToks, I was really just like kind of venting, I was kind of just like saying the things that I was feeling. And then that was when I started to get a lot of other artists and creatives interested in following me. And so what I decided to try and do is not, continue to make content like that that's going to empower creatives, but not alienate anybody who is already gravitating toward my work. And the way that I do that is by focusing more vaguely on empowerment. I think that every human being has a level of creativity in them. So by me putting creative empowerment into the world, it's not going to alienate people who are buying work from me. And especially because when they're really serious buyers, they continue to buy from me. So I don't really need to have like 1,000 buyers, so I could have, I'm up to like over 20,000 followers on TikTok, but I only have like a handful of art buyers, and I don't make more work than that anyway. I can't make work quicker than that. So, and then the nice thing is that my prints that I make in my own studio are often at a good price point that I feel like other artists like me want to buy. So that's what I'm selling to those people. And of course, I would never, deter anyone from buying whatever they want to buy from me. But that's usually kind of how it works. And so that's why I'm keeping my voice that way. And none of it goes against what I believe anyway. I just want to empower people. I just want people to feel, like their inner truth and their life and their experiences is kind of like held up and respected. And that's what my art is about. And then my videos just kind of go in a little bit more about the creative journey side of it.
Yeah, they're amazing. And it's so true what you said about it can apply to anyone from any different field. And right. I think it's important to note too that those videos showcase you and your personality and who you are. And I know for me, I'm so much more likely to buy art from someone who I connect with and I feel like I know you. And all of your videos, even if it's, might be geared towards something art specific in that video, it just shows who you are. And so people who might not be an artist, but like your work and like to buy from you, those I feel like do directly help that relationship. And maybe they got one piece of work from you, but then they're reminded about you because you keep showing up on their feed doing these fun things and they're more inclined to buy more work from you.
I think that is so smart how you set that up. So it's just, you can give the content, you're giving help, you're helping people, you're inspiring people. And then at the same time, you still get the sales. And just like Sid said, you're just connecting with them. That's just a win-win. Yeah. Nice. You're crushing it. That's awesome.
And the thing about like putting a lot onto the internet, that was also, I know I said I made that choice to do, I started to do that more in the beginning of the pandemic because I was kind of desperate for connection, but I consciously made the choice to take social media seriously as an endeavor only about maybe a year and a half ago, because I looked at my own goals, and my goals were to make things I love and get them out to as much of the world as I can. So the way that I'm doing that is to try and just put a lot of content on the internet, because the more I can put myself out there, the more chances there are of more people seeing my work. And so, it's all about my own goals. And I'm so happy that I can do it in a way that is helping other people too.
It truly is so helpful for the people listening who maybe haven't seen your videos. I love how you structure a lot of them where you start off with a relatable thought or a relatable thing that artists are going through. And then you follow it with like kind reassurance of, it's okay that you're feeling this. I'm feeling this too, or something like that. And then you always end it with some sort of real tool or valuable information on how to actually make changes, like deliberate changes. And your videos are the epitome of value. Like that is so valuable for artists to hear, because not only are they not only are they feel seen, they feel heard,
they feel heard,
related to, and then not only do they feel heard, but then you're giving them direct like value and information to change whatever, that thought or issue was.
Yeah. And isn't it just, I think it's so interesting how many people need this, and I think especially in this era right now, something occurred to me recently that was, people need reassurance about the thoughts they're having by themselves, with themselves, because that's what we're doing all the time now. And especially as an artist, when you're putting this vulnerable thing into existence, and you're like, oh my God, like you're already feeling so many thoughts about it, and it's connected to these really personal feelings. And then, you stop and you think like, no one in the world can understand me. No one can relate to me. There's no way that anyone knows how I'm feeling. And so, it really, really helps me too when I put a video out there where it's genuinely something that I was just thinking to myself, where I'm like, I can't do this. This is how I'm feeling. And I put it there, and, I get like, even if I get 10 people that say I'm feeling the exact same way, it's like I can breathe again. It's like I have this feeling like, wow, I'm okay. I can keep going, like this is just a human thing, and people are with me in this.
Absolutely. I think you only even need one sometimes. It's just like that one person just to be like, yeah, I feel that same. You're just like, yeah. You feel it in your chest for real.
Because you can't rely on, like your significant other or your parent or your kid or whatever every single day to say, yes, I feel like that too. So I think that's the magic thing about social media and sharing things on there, is like, you don't know who you're going to reach around the world who's feeling that same way as you. And it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And you being like, I'm inspired looking up to you. You're working, you're killing the game, and hearing you having those thoughts, like this is someone that I look up to, that I want to be like, is so just reassuring for people getting started too. Just the fact that you are an example of someone who's working, has their own business, and you are having these thoughts. So of course, someone who's just getting started and, doesn't know how the world works as well, they're having those same thoughts as well. And it's beautiful. The content you put out truly is making a difference. And I know you know that, but I just want to tell you again.
Thanks for making that point. That's a really good point. Thank you.
Talking just more about your content. So it seems to me like this comes so naturally to you. The way you just encourage, was that something you had to kind of deliberately work on, like affirmations and building up that confidence? Like where did that come from, where you can just spew such encouraging support? Because that's a skill.
Yeah, so truthfully.
Wow.
Yeah, and authentically, yeah.
Yeah, this is an interesting moment in my life right now because I'm thinking about how many years I just, I'll say it this way. I went to therapy for a long time. I went through some stuff in my life and, my family life, in my personal life. And on top of that, I don't know, this isn't like a major issue, but I've always kind of felt like being a creative person, unfortunately, sort of like puts us at a disadvantage in society. And I've always sort of just felt like kind of an outsider because of that. And just kind of like I don't totally fit in. And even, my family's incredible. I'm so lucky to have people like that in my life. My husband's incredible, but a lot of them are not like, hyper focused creatives like me. They appreciate the arts. They're creative maybe in one way in their life, but, I've just always felt like I have to be making things all the time. And that coupled with being a really, really sensitive person and being a deep thinker, and going through experiences in my life where I just felt like I couldn't really talk to anybody about it, and, having to go to therapy for a while. Something I started to do, which I think is kind of what led to my ability to do this now on the internet, maybe about, how long has it been now? Maybe 5-10 years ago, I started to, instead of writing in a journal, doing voice recordings as a journal for myself. And I would do these at all different points. I would do them if I was going through something really hard. I would do it if something really great just happened. I would do it most of the time, if I look back and I listen, it's all about like creative ideas. It's all about like, ooh, I just thought of this way that I can do this thing. It's like, oh, I just thought about revisiting this other idea I had and how to, tie this back around. But a lot of the time it would be like traipsed in with like, oh, I'm feeling so down about this. Why can't I do this? Oh, I feel so like not confident about this other thing in my life, or, something going on in a relationship, or something that's so private and personal. But I would go back and I would listen to these recordings. And when I would listen to it later, even though it was myself, I was like, why did I feel so insecure about recording this? Because it sounds so human. And so I think that, and then I would sometimes here and there share those things with friends. And it started to kind of get to a point where I had friends always just come to me for these kinds of moments to talk about these kinds of things, to the point where I'd have to sometimes say, like, I'm not your therapist, like, go pay someone to talk about this. But I guess I just kind of realized that I didn't look at it first like I'm comfortable talking about this. I looked at it like I like to talk about this. I want to talk about this. On top of the fact that like I've kind of just always been a very outgoing, kind of performative type of person. I was like, filmed myself on camera a lot when I was a kid. So I just, when this like format of doing video on social media came up, I was like, I'm just going to get in front of the camera and talk about these things that I've been saying to myself for so many years, and so I remember when I first started doing that voice recording thing, thinking like, what is this? Like, what am I doing with all of these voice recordings? Like, what is this going to turn into? And then I do kind of feel like this is what it was going to turn into. I kind of feel like I was doing all these recordings to eventually be able to talk that way to other people. And it's just kind of amazing because I think you're totally right. I think there is so much value to it, and it's for them and it's also for me. And it's like, I think it's what I always wanted to do is just like build this community based on empowerment and empowerment of like our inner thoughts and getting past those. And I think turning them into art, and that's so cool. That's awesome.
That's awesome. I really like the idea of instead of journaling, you talk them, because I think me and you are very similar in that way. And I've tried journaling, and oh man, I can't write. But I
You
love
should try it.
I love that idea because it gives you the perspective. You finally get to sit on it
Yeah.
for a week, a month. Because sometimes I'll take little notes here and there on different things, and I'll stumble across them, and I'm like, what was going through my head during that point? Like, what were you thinking? Or it's super exciting and you get inspired because you made it happen, and you're like, wow, remember when it was just that thought? To then, yeah, I love that. That's a good one. I'm
Yeah.
gonna start doing that. Do you do it? Like on a schedule, or is it just when something pops in your head, you record?
It is so not scheduled. It's like there's sometimes it'll be like a month will go by where I haven't done anything. Sometimes it'll be like I'll record like 3 a day for a week straight, and I'll say to myself, like, what am I doing? Why do I have so much to get out? But I think to your point about like there being like you'll look at your note on the paper and be like, what was I thinking at this point? There's something so cool about listening to myself saying it because I could hear where I'm at. I could hear the emotion in my voice. I could hear whether I'm talking fast or slow or I'm tired, and other things that like you maybe wouldn't have the energy to also write into a page of your journal that you just throw in there in words. Like, I'll just say, I often do it when I'm driving because it's kind of like just a time where I can't use my hands or I can't use my eyes. So I'll just do it. And I'll just throw in there something like, oh God, I'm so tired today. And then that'll get me saying like, because, I've been dealing with this thing in my life and, whatever. And then like, I didn't go to sleep early last night and I've been on this schedule where I've been eating really bad and I haven't been taking care of myself. And and I'll listen to that stuff later and I'm like, oh God, like that's why it's important for me to take care of my body, or I'll listen to it later and I'll see, oh wow, when I'm working on a certain kind of part of my process, it gets me in this like really anxious place. Or when I'm working in a different part of my process, it gets me into a place where I'm like super tired or emotional. So it's been really, really like eye-opening to help me with my practice too.
That is wonderful to hear. I have actually done a similar thing. I had a therapist suggest this to me where when I struggle with bipolar disorder and when I'm in a manically just depressive state, I feel like a different person. And when I'm not in that state, when I would talk to my doctors and try to explain it, I wouldn't be able to remember or like operate from that place because I was so disconnected from it that when I come in and I'm feeling good, I'm like, what do you mean? I'm great. Like, and the doctors wouldn't be able to understand how low I get. And one of them suggested to document when I'm in that really low state. And so I would take videos of myself hyperventilating, crying, like just really going through it. And it helped so much because in those moments, I couldn't see past them. I couldn't see feeling okay, even though every single time it's just a wave and I work through it. And being able to see those videos and see, oh my gosh, I was this low 4 weeks ago, that the next time it happens, I just have so much confidence that it will pass, and it makes it so much easier to go through and to deal with. And you're so right about, I used to journal too and I would write things down, but especially when you're in a state like that, it's like, what do I write? I'm just like, I feel dark. I am sad. I feel like I can't breathe. But you can't really, like, what does that really do? Just those words on the page. But having a video or a voice recording and really understanding where you were in that place is so beneficial. And that's a really good idea to do it for creative type things. Because again, I kind of just did it for more like sad things, mental health things.
Yeah, but it can overlap.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's a really valuable thing for people to take home and try if you've never done it. It can be a really cool way to see yourself, like to really see yourself.
Yeah. And I think for me, just doing the voice, it just helped me not worry about what I look like or, I don't know if everybody can relate to that, but I know it's something a lot of people can relate to, which is that, worrying about your appearance can be distracting. And that's really unfortunate, but it's true and it's real. And so just hearing your voice, I think was even more helpful for me because I could really listen. And listening sometimes doesn't happen when you're focusing on other things.
Is there any specific thing that you want to share or talk about? Something that you I don't know, maybe advice you want to give or something that you've learned that, I don't know, that you want to highlight that we haven't touched on?
I'm trying to think. I feel like a lot of the things that you asked, I could keep going on about. I'm trying to think if there's any of them that I specifically wanted to say more about.
I'm laughing at the fact Sydney mentioned that you were worried about coming on here. Like, I don't do NFTs. I don't do all that. And we're like looking at each other. We're like, who cares? Do you know how much knowledge you have? Like, this was amazing. You like so much good advice that can just be applied to everything. It applies to our NFT audience, but we also have a lot of people that don't do it as well, but just everyone. Yeah. So I'm really happy you came on here regardless, even though you thought you had nothing to give.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, no, I more so just wanted to be clear to make sure because, you know, some podcasts are like very themed. So, but yeah, I guess, you know, it's so interesting for me to see myself in this place right now, to have younger people come to me and tell me that they're inspired by me or ask me advice on how to get to the place that I'm at now, and kind of just like stand and look around and be like, what do you mean? Like, this is just, you know, like this just all happened. So, you know, so organically, I'm just here. But then it really helps me look at myself 10 years ago, myself, you know, even longer ago than that, and think about how lonely and how scary it feels to be a creative and feel like you have no idea how you're going to get to your goals. So I think I just really, you know, I want to make it clear to anybody who's in that position that the absolute 100% sure way that you're going to get there is just to not give up and just to keep being the best that you can be to yourself. And it's just time. So, you know, just focus on your goal, like pick your goals. That's really, really important. Really write them down that are not somebody else's, that are not your parents, that are not your, you know, whoever you're dating, that are not other people you see around you who are doing, you know, well, I guess that's what you do with art. That's how you make a living. No, pick what do you want to do? Because you're not going to go into doing this if you don't love it. If you just wanted to make money, you could do any other career. But this is something that you love to do. So what do you want to do specifically with it? And then slowly work toward your goals and be really, really, really gentle with yourself on your way there. Be diligent and keep a schedule, and, you know, don't just let everything go and don't ever make any work. But, you know, be more gentle on yourself than you might be if you were working a job where someone else was going to tell you what to do every day, because it takes a lot of work and a lot of emotional energy to just wake up every day and work towards something that you want to do for yourself. But yeah, I believe it's possible. And I just believe that anybody who's creative can just, you know, have a happy life if they focus on those things.
Gosh, that was a beautiful way to end this podcast.
Thank you.
That was so...
I have more things, I think, than I realized to say. Now I can make like 100 more videos.
Seriously.
Absolutely. I really just like that you're very clear that it takes work. You have to be diligent. You have to put the time in, but yet it's still very possible, even if you don't think you're that great. That's what I really like about that message. But just be diligent. It's not
so
like
much work, a lot of work.
It's so much work. Some people really just do not understand that. But yeah, it's definitely possible. And if you want it, you can get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're such a beautiful...
And you don't even have to make a living from the work. You can just do it. Like, you know, my mom plays the piano and she's like, well, you know, I have to do this and I have to do that. I'm like, but Mom, you love the piano. Just play it. Like, just do the thing that makes you happy, because life is short. And chances are, usually when you put that love energy into something that you're doing, other people like it too, because they feel that energy. So just give it a chance, you know?
Yeah.
100%.
You are such a perfect blend of practical knowledge and goals, but also just
motivation.
Soft. Yeah, motivation, but also like soft. Like you said, you're sensitive, and I can feel that. I'm super sensitive too, and your videos are just so gentle and soft, and you can tell that you're speaking to other sensitive creatives, because a lot of people who are very goal practical, I think they can communicate in ways that are very like, you got to work, get up, do
like Gary Vee.
Yeah, and for a lot of sensitive creatives, like it just doesn't hit right. And your content, I feel like, is just perfect for that type of person. So I'm so glad that I found
Thank
you on
you so
TikTok.
much.
I love your content. Truly, it inspires me. It pushes me to be better. You're just amazing. I'm so glad that I got to meet you. And thank you for coming on.
Absolutely. You guys are giving me a huge boost of confidence too. So I feel really inspired for the day and really appreciate the conversation. It was great.
Right on. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I will leave all of Jessica's links down in the description so you guys can check out her work and her videos. They are amazing. You will not regret it. And all right, I think that's it. We will see you guys in the next episode. Have a beautiful day. Bye.